Most of us are making financial decisions based off of rules that we didn't necessarily agree to. We look at our parents, we look at our grandparents, and we say, they did it this way. That's the way I should do it. Now, I will be the first to say that there are some definitely golden rules that are going to be timeless. However, sitting here in 2026, we should stop blindly following rules that don't fit anymore and start redesigning and maybe throwing out some old rules and seeing what fits with our life now so that we can be successful and stop beating ourselves up on things that don't necessarily work anymore. Because really, the goal is financial freedom. And hopefully, we can get much closer to that in 2026. So, if that sounds like a good thing to you, stick around. That's what we're going to talk about. And before we get into that whole minutia of how to throw out old rules and redesign them for your life, welcome. If you are new here, I'm Lisa. I've been a financial advisor for almost 15 years, and I help people get to financial freedom as quickly as possible. If you are returning, we are so happy to have you back and glad you are enjoying them. Okay, so let's get into the topic. So, why have money rules changed necessarily? Well, our worlds have changed quite a bit. Just some things to talk about or to think about are our careers, right? Back in the olden days, people would be in their careers for 50 years. They'd get a pension. When they retired, they got the gold watch, 60, 65 years old that they were retiring at. And now if somebody's at a company for 5, 10 years, it's like the longevity is huge at that point, right? You've been at the company for 10 years. That's a huge amount of time. People tend to jump from career to career, job to job a lot more. So, and those pensions are gone. We don't have those anymore, Billy. We have 401ks that we're supposed to utilize, which nobody taught us how to utilize properly, and what the changes are and how much we can put and should we put into there and all that stuff. So things have changed a lot when it comes to our career path and retirement. Another thing that's changed is longevity. So somebody would retire at 60, 65 years old, live for 10 to 15 years, and die peacefully in their sleep. That was just the longevity of human beings at that time. Now, people are retiring at, let's say, 62, 65, and they're living for 30 years in retirement, and that's 95 years old. We have different health issues when that comes up. We have different needs in terms of how much we need to save. There's a lot more to spend our money on in that time period, and we're healthy a lot longer in that time period. So retirement's a lot more expensive than it used to be. Longevity definitely plays a big part into it. And another thing is family structures. So back in the day, it was, you get married, you have kids, they get married, they have kids. Not that that doesn't exist anymore. It does, obviously. But now we have divorce, remarriage, more kids, blended families, all that kind of thing. That definitely can make planning for retirement and especially estate planning much more difficult. So basically, what we're going to focus on is letting go of being reckless and becoming more intentional with what we are doing. So let's jump into the money rules and see if this makes more sense to you as we get into it. Right now, we're going to let go of more discipline is always the answer. Now, if you've been around here for a while, I talk about healthy eating and weight loss and that kind of stuff, because that's always my journey that I'm trying to do. And we always say, if I was just more disciplined, I read a meme the other day that said, I don't need a personal trainer. I just need somebody to come and slap bad food out of my hands before I eat it. Okay, yeah, that might work or that might not work. But we always think it's discipline. I'm just not disciplined enough. I don't have as much discipline as Dan over there, that kind of thing. So with this discipline idea, the old belief is if I just budget harder, it'll be fine. I just need to stick with my budget. I just need a budget. This is what I hear from everybody at the beginning of the year. And the real truth is you have to be aligned rather than restrict. So you have to be crystal clear on what we're trying to get to rather than restrict. Because if you're just restricting and you have no idea what we're trying to get to, not just for the long-term future, but just short-term things, it demotivates you. That restriction seems like, why am I doing this? And that's when you eat the donut because you haven't lost 10 pounds in a week, right? So let's reframe this and design a system that works when life gets messy. Maybe that's in starting to do one thing that would be good for you. Maybe that's looking at your bank account more often or your credit card statements. This is one that you've probably heard me say a million times on here, and I will continue to say it. Looking at your credit card statements is going to be 10 times more helpful than you doing a budget. Just is. It's easy. It's accessible. It's all online now. There's no excuse not to look at your credit card statements. And you start to learn about you. You see where you're spending. You say, that purchase was worth it. That purchase wasn't worth it. And you start to mold your spending based off of learning about you and your spending habits versus just putting some budget in place that you're going to forget about in 2 months and go off and spend and go, how much did I spend? I have no idea how much I spent. Now, I'm not saying that you should know how much you need every month to survive. You should know that number. However, restricting and going, I need $6,000 a month, but I really should only need $5,000 a month, that's going to be much harder for people and much harder for them to incorporate. So maybe it's just learning about you and you're analyzing your spending habits more often. Another rule that we could throw out is you should own a home by a certain age. Okay. That is very difficult for a lot of people. It is. And there's been talks about the 50-year mortgage and home affordability. And from what I can tell from what President Trump said, this is going to be a big topic this year in the administration. I don't know what that means. But I think this is going to be a topic that we're going to be talking about a lot this year. But instead of saying, I should own a home by now, you need to start thinking, okay, how can I own a home? Because I am a big proponent. Some people say renting's fine, don't worry about that, all that kind of stuff. However, I think that is a defeating thought for young people to think that they can't ever do it. Like, I was just reading an article and they were saying that like 86% of renters believe that they'll never own a home. That's depressing. I mean, that made my heart break for them. I want people to believe they can do something. As soon as you lose hope on something, it'll never happen. And so instead of saying, I'm 45 and I don't own a home and that's horrible and I'll never own a home, start thinking, how can I own a home? How can I even just buy a condo someplace? How can I, if I truly want to own a home, how can I do it? And instead of thinking about, by this age I should have this, and by this age I should have that, and by this age I should get married, and you need to start thinking, how can I, rather than I haven't yet. No victim mentality. Victim mentality is out. We want to be hopeful and work towards something. So work with where you are, be flexible, but keep your eye on the prize. If you want to own a home, you can own a home. If you haven't hit your number, by age, that's okay. Just keep working towards it. Okay. Number 3, the rule that you can throw out is retirement starts at 65. It was, you worked at a company for 50 years, you get, that wouldn't make sense because that person would be 15. Let's say 40 years. That makes more sense. You work at a company for 40 years and you get your pension and you get your gold watch and everything is great and you retire at 65 and that was the retirement age. That's not what it is anymore. Okay. The new model is phased retirement, flexibility, and purpose-driven transitions. Let me explain. Especially if you're burnt out at work, you're going to say, this is horrible. Why do you keep saying this? But when you are unsatisfied at work, we immediately go, I can't wait to retire. I can't wait to get out of here. But retirement for a lot of people means just stopping working. That is not fulfilling for people. And I tell you, for 30 years, that's very difficult for people to do. Some people can do it. That's great. Most people can't do that. Most people need something to keep them going, to add value to their life, that they feel like they're adding value to other people. That is how we are human nature wise. So it might mean that you can stop what you're doing at, let's say, 60, and maybe you start a business. Or maybe you take a lower paying job in an area you really enjoy. Or maybe you start a new career, go back to school. That's what I mean by phased retirement. Most people just don't stop and never go back for 30 years because it's not mentally healthy for them. And those stories that you hear, like my friends, fathers, brothers, blah, 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 this person died 2 weeks after he retired, and I don't want to be that person. You know, we all have those stories, but also part of that, you just don't know what that reasoning is. And you don't know, maybe he felt like he didn't have an identity without his work. Maybe, I'm using a he, I guess it could be a she in your, in your story, but you do want to make sure that you understand your purpose. And like I said, purpose-driven transitions. So remember, this is not your mother or father's retirement. This is your retirement. You can do what you want. You never have to retire if you don't want to. If you love what you do, keep doing it. Nobody's telling you have to retire. So that's just something to consider. Okay. Rule number 4, safe means never changing course. That is not true. Safe means being interactive and aware of what's happening and changing course when you need to. That is really the most important thing, that people feel like if I'm being safe, this is the same. I put this much away in savings. I put this much away in investing. I put this much away in my house. I'll just keep doing that for the next 30 years and I'll have no problem. And for some people, that will be perfectly fine. But for other people, that's not going to work. Life changes way too fast. You're going to feel stuck in a loop that might feel uncomfortable to you. And so you start self-sabotaging. I've seen that happen tons of times. You do want to make sure you're actively engaged and pushing yourself and changing course if you need to. That does not mean, jumping after every single shiny object that you see, every new stock that's out there, every new investment, you jump after that. That's not what I'm saying. But you need to do strategy updates. You need to look at life changes. You need to sometimes in mid-course make some corrections, make some changes, do some things a little differently, and push yourself out of your comfort zone a bit. I don't mean that risk-wise. I just mean just because your dad said put away 10%, that might not be the right number for you. That might be too low. That might be too high. You need to change course on that kind of thing. A good example is the $1 million rule, right? People say, if I had $1 million, then I can retire. Based off of what? Some number you heard? That's not real. You might need $2 million. You might need $500,000. You've got to start personalizing things and staying engaged in it. So that means you're going to have to change course sometimes. Another rule that we can throw away is if you're anxious about money, you're doing something wrong. I have a secret for you. All of us are anxious about money. Money is very emotional. It makes us feel like we're successful or we're not successful. It makes us feel like, do we have discipline or do we not have discipline? Did we achieve our goal? Did we not achieve our goal? A lot of people tie personal wealth or personal satisfaction, I should say, to how much money they make or to how much money they've saved or all that stuff. Money has nothing to do with you as a person. Okay? It just doesn't. However, money is going to make you feel anxious at times because, and this is the cold hard truth, money is the key to having choice in life. That's what financial freedom is all about. And I do have a video coming up talking about financial freedom and all that stuff because I always think it's worth going over again every once in a while. But you should feel anxious about money because when you feel anxious about money, that means you are engaged in your planning. You're engaged in your money and how it's being used in your life. You're engaged with, I hate to say it, but your life in general, right? Money should make you anxious. And does that mean it should keep you up at night? No. But it means that you should constantly be thinking about how to get to your goal, whether that's retiring early, whether that's buying a house, whether that's paying off your house, whether that's helping your kids go to college, whether that's getting to financial freedom so you can tell your boss to buzz off, whether whatever that is, you do need money for choices. And that's why we have anxiety around it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. So all people have anxiety around money, even top earners. And so anxiety is not failure. It means that you are engaged in you, which is good. Okay. So when we are replacing these old rules, you want to introduce a new framework. So it's clarity over control. You cannot control the stock market, but you can be clear on how you're invested and how last time the market reacted, how that portfolio mix works. How do you feel about that? It's just the way it is. You have to have clarity over control, especially when you're doing the market stuff, meaning investing, not do the markets, but when you're investing. Flexibility over rigidity. Your dad might have done a great job putting 10% away of his paycheck and he lived a great life and he had plenty of money and the house was paid off and everything. That might not work for you. And you have to be flexible and change course if you need to in that case. Satisfaction over sacrifice. So you need to have satisfaction in your life in order to do the sacrificing to continue to have that life, if that makes sense. So make sure that you are enjoying what you're doing, but being smart about it rather than feeling like you're sacrificing dessert, right? Progress over perfection. We oftentimes say, I'm going to save, I haven't saved a dime ever, but I'm going to save $2,000 a month. That might be too hard, right? Maybe we start with $100 or $50 or $10. Do not beat yourself up on the details. Beat yourself up on the details as you go on and challenge yourself, but start something. Action is always going to be the key to getting to financial freedom. You have to take some sort of action. That doesn't mean making reckless decisions, but you do need to celebrate the progress that you make. In fact, I think I've talked about this before, but every day I do journaling in the morning. And the thing that I do is I write 5 wins that I had the week or that day before. That really does help. It puts things in perspective. I also do a gratitude journal where they say, what went right today? Not what did you do that was good? What went right today? And it makes you have gratitude for what's going on. And it makes me feel like I'm making a lot more progress. Things are going much better than I thought they were. So you might want to incorporate some of those into your planning as well. It helps you stay on a positive note. I do think positivity and engagement can get you to financial freedom much quicker than being negative, having tons of stress over things and not being engaged in your plan. If you haven't looked in your 401k, your investments, anything for a year, this is the time to do it. Make sure you start re-engaging with all of that stuff. All right, so how do you apply this in 2026? Identify one outdated rule that you're going to release that has not been helping you. So write that down. And then choose one small decision that aligns with your life. Like I said, it might just be looking at your credit card statement. That's pretty easy to do. Doesn't take much time, doesn't cost you anything. That's where I would start. Anyhow, that's my opinion. But anyhow. So thing you could do is adjust your contributions. Maybe you've been contributing to your 401k $5,000 a year for the last 10 years. Could you change that? Could you up it a bit? Could you change your allocation in there? Could you be a little bit more proactive when it came to your investing? Maybe it's revisiting house plans. Maybe you own a home, you need to revisit your payment plan, meaning are you going to pay it off earlier? Maybe you rent now and you've given up hope on buying a home. Maybe we need to revisit that. And the next thing that you should do is redefine what enough is. That $1 million might be too high, might be too low for you, depending on where you're coming from. So you need to redefine what enough is. Because I can tell you, even though I deal with money all the time, and I think money is very important for people to feel like they have choice in life, you cannot take it with you. And so I do make a joke with people, nobody's ever complained to me about having too much money in retirement. And that's true. Nobody has, right? However, you can't take it with you. And you do need to know how much is enough. How much will provide you the life that you really want? How important is that? And really think about that kind of stuff, because I tell you, if you are happy, you will bring joy to everybody else in the world. And I think that that's what we need a little bit more of. So, what questions have I brought up in you? What are you thinking about that maybe you think is an important golden rule of money that has been holding you back and that you need to redefine, throw out, whatever it is? What does financial freedom mean to you? It is very personal. That is something you should be thinking about, and we will probably be doing a video pretty soon on that. And your plan needs to support your life. Just because your friend Jane is doing something doesn't mean you should be doing that. I've had videos on that in the past, and we can revisit that if you'd like to. So here's my ending question to you. Which money rule are you letting go of in 2026? I hope this was helpful for you. Feel free to reach out and let me know any questions, comments, anything that you have as you're going through this process. I'm happy to hear about your journey. Until next time, stay safe out there, be kind to one another, stay strong, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.